everyone, and welcome back to the Hazardous Artist Series, Episode 5, Sledding Incidents. That's right, the title is a little different today, and because Christmas madness in July when it's August doesn't feel right to me, so we changed it, which is good because that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Sledding incidents that I have been through, and I have. Yeah, I know, that doesn't make sense. Just go with it. If you guys are interested in the process of these videos and how I blend, how I do my shadows, and how I do my highlights, check out the first episode of the Hazardous Artist series to get covered on all your artists' process needs. Latest. Okay, so let's dive into some of my favorite stories of sledding. So we're just going to jump into my favorite sledding story of all time. So this was within 10 years, I believe. It was a beautiful snowy day back when I still lived with my parents. We had a local neighborhood hill that we would go to sled occasionally. And we were at an age where we didn't really need our parents' permission to go, but my mom likes to know where we're going just in case. So it was Jesse, Ari, and I. Hey guys, shout out, love you. And so we got there at this sledding location. We only had two sleds. It was the round plastic sleds, the good sleds, in my opinion. And we got there and we realized something. There was a kid, or someone like us, who had came before us and built a ramp in the middle of this hill. So this hill was a decent sized hill. It wasn't super big. It was big enough though. It was big enough. And it was relatively steep. I wouldn't say it was super steep though. But in the middle of this hill, on this one side of the hill, there was a ramp and someone built it. And then so we looked at each other as best friends would when mischievous play is about to be at hand. We thought, hold my beer, except we weren't old enough, I think. So we were like, hold my pop and let's go. So no one says pop anymore. So we get ready. We're sitting on our sleds. The two of us could go down at a time. So we go down to try and hit the ramp as best as we can. First couple of times, I think we didn't really hit the ramp. So we thought, okay, we're going to hold hands as we're going down and we're going to hit this ramp. One of us is going to hit this ramp. So we reach out, we hold one of our hands together, and then we go down, and then we'd hit the ramp. We would separate our hands and our bodies would separate from the sleds, and we would just boom everywhere. We would crash. We'd laugh about it and do it all over again. And then one time we were like, let's do two hands. And we did two hands. And we went down. And even though our hands did not separate, our bodies certainly separated from our sled. So our sled would go flying one way. We'd go flying the other way. We'd crash. We'd laugh. We'd do it all over again. And that's when we noticed a trend of how one-handed sled rides, our hands would separate more than double-handed sled rides. And the science nerd in us looked at each other with a smirk as we go, one-handed sled rides are hydrogen bonds. Because hydrogen bonds are one of the weaker bonds. They break all the time. And then we go, and the double-handed sled rides are double bonds, because that was totally original. But double bonds are less likely to break. They're not the strongest bond, but they're pretty sturdy bonds. So, we cackled in chemistry before we continued on with our sledding escapades. And so we do more of the hydrogen bond sled rides and the double bond sled rides, and we cackle more, and then we're like, okay, we're just gonna go sledding normally. And I thought, okay, this time it's fine. I'll just come over here a little bit. I say come over here a little bit where there's 3 trees. And the trees were relatively at the top of the hill. They weren't in the middle or at the bottom. They were relatively at the top. And I say relatively because they weren't at the top. They were still down on the hill. And at this day, Jessie had brought her camera and we'd been recording ourselves just hitting this ramp and flying everywhere. And I'm sorry to say, guys, that we actually don't have the videos. I asked, and Jessie thinks that they're lost in limbo somewhere. So it's very unfortunate because the story I'm about to tell you was caught on camera. So let's get to it. It's just me on a sled at the top of the hill by these trees. And I go, it's fine. We're just gonna, I'm gonna miss these trees. It's fine. And I told Jessie that. Gonna miss the trees. It's okay. And I get on the sled. What I didn't realize until after I started moving was that there was this divot in the snow. And it was a path that led straight to the tree. And so as I'm going down, my eyes start to get wide because I realize, oh no, this is where my life ends and I won't be able to go home. I'll be in the hospital. I'll be vegetative. And so I hit this tree. Bam! That's an exaggeration. Did you like it? So I hit this tree. Bam! And then right on my back, okay? It wasn't my face or my arms or my legs. It was my back. And so I hit the ground after that. And I didn't stop. No. I just kept sliding down this hill all the way to the bottom. So Jessie is sliding down with me. Ari is at the top shouting if I'm okay. And by the time Jessie comes down, she's cracking up. She's not even hiding it. She's not even trying to hide it. Her hands are on her knees. She's doubled over. She's trying hard not to fall to the snow and roll around laughing. As I'm at the bottom with my arms and legs spread out, just, Aries still shouting if I'm okay. And finally, Jessie gets the gall to ask me if I am okay after she's done laughing. And I said, you guys, this is an actual quote. I'm gonna do the sound effects too, because it's greater that way, obviously. I went, it hurts so good. So that just causes another round of laughter from Jessie. And Aries, I don't even know if she heard it, but I remember when we watched the video later that you could hear it from the video. And so she's laughing, and I'm barely at this point getting up from the snow. I mean, I wasn't hurt, you guys. All of this wasn't a dramatic exaggeration at the time. I'm not talking like my story's an exaggeration. I'm talking about my arms spread out. I'm on the ground groaning kind of exaggeration. I wasn't that hurt. I was sore, but I wasn't hurt. So, because after that we still went sledding, it didn't matter. I hit a tree, it's fine, let's keep going. I was not a smart person back then. It's also a little bit debatable today, but... So that's one of my favorite sledding stories. And just sledding in general has always been a family thing. Especially when I went to my grandma's house, as you heard from last episode. Because my grandma had a really nice hill, which was her driveway, and at the top there was a turn before it actually got to the good part of the hill driveway thing. So, I said last episode that I didn't know who had shot through the turn into the raspberry bushes and into the forest, because that at the other side of my grandma's driveway are raspberry bushes. And it was my little brother. I think I mentioned it at the very end of last week's episode that it was my little brother who had shot through the raspberry bushes into the forest. But obviously he's fine. He's also not a very bright person. If you're watching this, don't kill me. So then there was another incident Jessie mentioned of my older brother hitting a rock and bruising his tailbone. But I don't remember that. It does not surprise me, because we just don't care. We're like, let's just go down the hill. It's fine. It's fine. We're just gonna die. So, that was one. Those were always fun, because I liked riding with my grandfather as we went down, because the gravity and the weight would just push us, faster down the hill. It was great. And then, we had a hill in my backyard, but it wasn't a big hill, but it was steep enough. But the bad thing is that there was only one place in my entire backyard on that section where the hill is that you could actually sled on. And that was because my father had a home run fence for his wiffle ball games. And so the only place we could sled was the side of the yard that had the shed. And the shed wasn't at the base of the hill or anything. It wasn't 6 to 10 feet from the base of the hill. But it's not enough space, I think. Especially when it would get icy, because then you just hit the shed. And hit the shed we did, because we didn't care. We crashed into this shed. At some point when I got older, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can bail from my sled and not hit the shed. It wasn't very often, but I mean, even the dogs were smarter than us, because my brothers would try to coax my dog into the sled with him. And as they're going down, the dog would just bail halfway through. I'm like, nope, I'm not doing this. And my brother would crash into the shed, and that was all she wrote. So sledding has always been fun for me. I like the speed. I like going down the hill. I like, flailing my arms like a child. It doesn't matter how old I am, because sledding will always be fun. And even after I moved, I got to sled a couple times here. It was entertaining, to say the least, because I also hit a tree. And that is a story that is just, it was full of stupidity. We're just going to say that. Because it was a midnight sledding trip. Because Kenneth was like, let's go sledding at midnight with his friends. And we're like, okay. So we're on inner tubes, not plastic or metal or wood, rubber. We were on rubber. And this hill had, it was not only steep, but it was also large. And then at the bottom, it had a T. So there was a 90-degree turn you had to make to hit the other side of this hill. I don't know how to steer on an inner tube. I don't even think Kenneth knows how to steer on an inner tube, but he did a lot better than I did. Because the first time I went down, I didn't want to go head first, because that seemed like a terrible idea. So I went on my butt, and so as I was going down, I mean, the velocity was just, oh my gosh. It was so much. I think I was doing 20 miles an hour at one point coming down this hill. And maybe that's an exaggeration, but it was pretty fast. And I got down, because at the bottom where this T happens is this like powdery snow wall, or like pile. I don't know how you would describe it, because it really wasn't a wall. And so, that way people could hit that before they hit a tree or a rock, both of which were right there. So I go down the hill, I'm doing 20, and I hit the powdered snow, and then I hit a tree with my back, because I guess that's just a trend now. And yeah, while it hurt, I wasn't terrible about it. And I think, you guys, that will actually end our video for the day. I hope you really enjoyed these sledding incidents, because I think I could have gone on about the one Kenneth made me go on. But unfortunately, the video is not that long for that. Do you guys have any sledding stories you want to talk about? I'd love to hear them, because sledding stories are always fun to hear. But thank you guys for watching this video and sitting through my stories of my sledding incidents. If you guys enjoyed it, well, like this video, comment below, and share with everyone you know. And I will see you all next time. But until then, dare to create. All that shuffling earlier? Yeah, I can't sit still. I'm like a child. I have to move. Move.